All right, let's see if we can get this started. First of all, I apologize if I'm going to cough a bit in the between. I've been having a cold for more than a week, and it's rather annoying, but that's the way it is. So, I hope everyone is enjoying the beers Jan promised he should buy.
I did not buy people beer yet.
Oh, it's such a shame.
Yeah. Okay.
But
I'll
yes.
leave it to you now.
Thank you for coming. I'm going to be talking about enterprise deployment of Power BI, lessons learned, but also some general aspects about deploying an enterprise. First of all, my name is Johan Ludvig Brattås. I'm a managing consultant at Capgemini in Norway. You can find me on Twitter under the nickname of Intolerance. It does not mean that I'm an intolerant bastard. It just means that I have some food intolerances, which was why I started out on Twitter. I'm also the organizer of SQL Saturday Oslo, and you will find me quite a lot of places volunteering for different organizations such as PASS. And I'm also the owner of a dog. Her name is Nana. She's a Scottish Deerhound. The reason why she's in the slide deck this time is because I was presenting in Scotland this session about a month ago, so she's still in it. The agenda for today is what is enterprise ready and why should we do Power BI? Some different approaches to deployment. Should we do on-premise or as a service? Where are your data sources and how to governance on them? Security, collaboration and sharing, tracking report usage and statistics, and what is premium tier and why should you use it? So what is enterprise ready? Well, it's not that enterprise. But really, enterprise ready, I tried to find some good suggestions for it, but this one was the best I could find. I found it on Stack Exchange, so of course I did the thing you always do with Stack Exchange, copy, paste. We haven't tested this in an environment anywhere near as large and complex as yours, but we're crossing our fingers and hoping it will scale to your requirements. But the main thing is that enterprise ready means it has capacity to handle complex environments with large, well, let's see now, I just have to remove my way from screen, thank you. With large amounts of users with demands such as single sign-on, access control, audit logging, integrations to various data sources, scalability, service level agreements and support, and source control and change management. So the current case I've been working on is with an established enterprise data warehouse that has been running since 2006. It's 6 multi-dimensional SAS cubes, and it has more than 10 tabular models. Right now it is around 15, so it's growing all the time. We have a number of data marts in SQL Server 2016 at the moment. And there are at least 70 reports in SSRS. When we started this project, we didn't have a very good usage tracking. It had disappeared sometime around the upgrade to 2012, I think. And there were 30 plus Excel pivot files in SharePoint, and some data and dashboards, which we tested to see if it would be better suited for our solution. In the end, that was scrapped. And the organization has around 3,100 employees. They are running the Norwegian airports, so they are spread out all over Norway. And I mean all over Norway, really. So it's very different usage scenarios for each kind of airport and employee. And that's why Power BI came into focus with their mobile app and so on. So why should an enterprise organization choose Power BI? Does it have single sign-on? Yes, it does. It also supports two-factor authentication, of course, which is also very handy. Does it have access control? Yes. Row-level security. Audit logging? Yes. Integrations with the various data sources? Oh, yes. And it's an increasing amount every month, almost. Scalability? Definitely. There's nice scalability on both the shared and the premium tier. Service level agreements and support? Definitely. Source control and change management? Not so much. I don't know about you, but it's since the PBIX files are binary, you can't really use regular versioning, so the source control on these. So the administration side still needs love, but it's getting there. I can't see you in the room, but I guess at least some of you have been working on Power BI for a while. So doing the administration was really a pain back in 2016, but it's been improving steadily ever since. The gateway administration is really annoying though. Let's see if I can switch to another dashboard. We'll see. I thought I was supposed to show you. For the managing of gateways, this is the enterprise gateway we're running in production at the moment. There are a lot of data sources that you will need to enter, and of course for each of them you will have to add users and type in the names and blah blah blah, and it's not the most user-friendly thing to do. There might be some solutions that you can script, but I haven't noticed any of them yet, and if you do have any suggestions, please share. Maybe Jan had some. Anyway, and workspace administration was really a pain. It's getting better, and now you have some lockdown features as well, so it's easier to stop the spread of reports via Workspaces. And of course, there's the no source control for the PBIX files, makes it a hassle for administration as well. So Power BI as a service, you know that one, powerbi.com. It's updated every month with lots of nice features, and it's automatically patched and tuned, so you don't have to think about that. And it has a shared hosting as the main plan. You have Power BI report server running on premise, and it was introduced in May 2017. It's an add-on to the SQL Server reporting server, so it's very easy to install it, but it's only available to install if you have Power BI Premium tier, or if you have SQL Server Enterprise with the service level agreement. It is the full Power BI experience though, so it's very nice if you can't have the cloud solution. But it only updates 3 times a year, which means that I'll switch back from that one. Even though it's updates 3 times a year, you also have to make sure that you use the right client, because the Power BI desktop can't handle all the new features put into it, so they release a special client for the BI report server. And of course, a main thing for an enterprise administration is that each update is only supported for 12 months. And this is a very important step, because if you're running an enterprise organization, your administrators will probably not like you to update 3 times a year. They would rather update every 2 or 3 years. And you can maximum do it 12 months before you start running out of support. So that is a major thing to consider when you are thinking of deploying on premises. And of course, as I mentioned, it's a custom Power BI desktop should have been released every 3 months as well, but this year I think the first update came in August. The last one was in November when it was released first time, and then hopefully we'll get a new one in November. It should be November, and then February, March, and then again in August. Our organization chose as a service. And why? Well, partially because when we started looking into this, the Power BI report server was not an option. That was only released in 2017. We started looking into Power BI early 2016. I think we went into a beta around February 2016, and then we pushed out live in April. And since our data warehouse is already running in a less restricted security zone, the internal IT systems at the client are running in very different zones, from the most secure zone 1 until zone 4, and we are in zone 3 and 4, so we could share our data into the cloud without any problem. This also enables easier access to sharing data with external customers. For our part, that is specifically the major Norwegian airlines and some of the larger international airlines as well that need to look into some of the traffic data. Sorry. And of course, with users spread out all over the country, and some of these reports are being used on the runway where the Wi-Fi connection is flaky at best. It's important to have something that we can access just through a regular mobile phone or an iPad with a 3G connection. And of course, it meant less strain on the infrastructure and costs, because we managed to shut down 2 clusters of SharePoint servers and at least reduce the size of the VMs running the SSRS servers, which meant quite a lot of money saved. So when you're looking into what kind of deployments or data handling you want to do in your organization, normally you will see the business-driven self-service is the way that most of the companies, such as Tableau and ClickView and Power BI, when they launch into a new client, they try to do it with what they call land and expand. So a small department starts using it with a few dedicated analysts, and then somebody else likes what they do and show them that report to their boss, and then that boss will buy it and blah, blah, which is totally out of IT control. And yes, it's a very, very often used tactic among the self-service BI tools. It means it's a bottom-up approach, so the business users will start using it first of all. And it's pure self-service. Mostly analysts will do this, a few dedicated ones normally. And no or little involvement from IT. And both the development of the reports and the support of the reports is done by the users. And the challenges with this, though, is that there's very little knowledge of data modeling, which, even though Power BI is a very fast tool, if you model it wrongly, you will start feeling the pains of that rather quickly. The data quality is very inconsistent. Analysts aren't really known that much for being thorough. They are very brilliant. They are good at finding new stuff, but data quality isn't that much in focus in lots of departments that I've seen. Sorry. And yes, you've probably seen this one before. Numbers don't lie, but if you mix up your formulas. And supportive reports takes time and focus away from more important tasks for the analysts. They are there to make new business or discover new data, ideas from the data, not support a report that they made 3 months or 6 months ago because somebody forgot to refresh their browser or something. And I've seen that in other clients as well, where the analyst started coming to IT asking them to take over because it had gotten out of hand. They'd spent more time supporting somebody's boss instead of developing new reports. And of course, you will get Power BI hell, the new Excel hell. People making copies out of copies out of copies and spreading the reports around. And in the end, you don't really know which one is original and which one is showing true numbers. And of course, you will start losing control of the data. You will have no single version of the truth. The advantages, though, is you will get a high user adoption because the business user will see practical use cases at once. It's a very fast time to market and a high degree of innovation and discovery within the organization. Corporate BI, though, traditional business intelligence, is a top-down approach. IT develops and maintains the solution for the business. Business users only consume available reports and dashboards that IT have developed for them. And there is little to no involvement by business. Most of them just ask for something and then wait until they finally got what they had, what they ordered. And in some cases, I've seen the business has already forgotten what they ordered when they get it. So yes, there's a slow development process. You risk having a low adoption rate by the business, and you are always doing retroactive reporting. So you're developing what somebody else has ordered, and then you will get less innovation out of it. The advantage is, of course, that you will have great data models. Consistent reporting, so you have one version of the truth. And you will have nice looking dashboards and reports with the company profile on them. And you will have dedicated support by the people who both know how to develop the reports and have time to support even the more simple questions. And you will have a controlled release and versioning of the reports. So you have make sure that what is going out with the right sums and everything. Then you have a hybrid approach called IT managed self-service. It's IT driven, but with champions selling the solution to the business. Champions are delivering business projects to IT for development, and IT delivers qualified data sources and data models for the analysts for self-service. And successful business created reports are tested, tuned, and adopted by IT. And all the adopted reports are fully supported by IT. So we chose the hybrid version, which was a success. We had a dedicated analyst out selling what Power BI could do for them to the business. First, we picked some super users and trained them and enabled them to make new reports. And then later on, we rolled out with training and use of Power BI to all business areas and all business users that were interested in using it, even on doing on-site training in remote locations. And perhaps it was a bit too much of a success because we went from 7 people up to 12 within a short period of time, and we're still struggling to cope with all the new business that's been flooding in. At the same time, some of these super users are really eager working, and we have to sometimes put the brakes on to make them realize that it's not everything that they want to do that is possible to do at the moment, or that they need to check things like GDPR regulations and so on. What we also did in our solution was that when the business user has created a report that they want to hand over to IT, they deliver it to us. We qualify the data model, we correct every mistake we find, and then we put the report into the profile colors and the profile template that we've developed for the organization. So we only support the reports that have been profiled. So if anybody calls us and asks about a report that has not been profiled, it is not supported. So where are your data sources? Is everything in the cloud already? And Power BI, of course, supports a huge number of data sources in the cloud. For example, Azure SQL, Azure Analysis Services, Data Lake, OneDrive for Business, Redshift, and Spark. And yes, there's such a huge number of data sources that it's really easy to get into the cloud that way. Do you have data sources on premise though? Such as your enterprise data warehouse. Both multidimensional and tabular SSAS models are supported. Your local SQL server, Oracle or Sybase also. And of course, there's things like file share, or dare I say it, SharePoint. And all these are supported in one way or another. When you connect to the PowerBI.com service from an on-premise data source via data gateway, the gateway itself resides locally, and the recommended best practice is having it installed on the server, because servers rarely shut down. And this way you will make sure that you have the best possible uptime for your data gateway. You manage it in the cloud, as I showed you earlier. It's a bit cumbersome, but when they first got all the different data sources into the cloud, it works. And I said, again, all the data sources needs to be maintained manually. So every time you need to change users, there might be something changed with the security groups, but we've been struggling with having them working properly. So in the end, we've had to add the users. Though that has to be said, we are not talking about users accessing reports. We're talking about users who are allowed to deploy reports on the data source. So that's the difference. And all the users that need to create reports must be specified, yes. And you need an account to authenticate to the data sources. But that one also impersonates the user. So we have a service account that with a password that we can add into the data source in the cloud. But role level security and everything is handled anyway because of the impersonation. So in the beginning, all our data sources were on premise. We put up the data gateway, but we struggled with the configuration. And this is because all our servers are behind the proxy. And the proxy setup is very well documented on PowerBI.com. But what we missed, and it might be just us, or it might be easy to miss it, is that there are two different config files that need to have the proxy configuration added to them. And of course, there's a challenge with the security. In our organizations, all the developers need to use an elevated user access admin user that doesn't have any email connected to it, which makes it near on impossible to work with the Power BI service, or Azure in general, actually. We also had problems with reports that have both an on-premise and a cloud data source. And the reason for this is that the data gateway, when there is a report that has several different, both on-premise and cloud gateways, clouds and on-premise data sources, the gateway needs access to both. As soon as you get an on-premise data source into it, you will need access via the gateway. And therefore, the on-premise gateway also needs to see and talk to the cloud service, or the cloud source, which isn't always easy when you're behind the proxy. On the other hand, though, it's a really lightweight communication. We do struggle a bit with our proxy on other things, but when it comes to the Power BI reports and the data sources, there is very, very little lag, and we are very happy with how it works. And don't ask why we're not using an express route. What we did wrong, though, we didn't plan for flat file source placement. We thought that we were going to use Power BI, on OneDrive Business, but for some reason our organization still hasn't started using OneDrive for Business. So we had to run around trying to find different solutions for that. Some wanted to have things in SharePoint. In the end, I managed to persuade people that we'd put them on the file share on the storage sharing network instead. It's a lot easier to manage. So, how do you think about security in your hybrid environment? Of course, you are using Azure Active Directory services. We are using multi-factor authentication, though only when we are outside the company network. We use security groups as much as we can within both the SQL Server and all the data sources that we have. And we use row-level security in the cubes and also in some imported models. Though for some of our airlines that are competitors, we make separate reports instead and have them on separate workspaces so they can't really see each other. And since only approved users can publish reports based on internal data sources, we have better control also over spreading of Power BI files. So, collaboration and sharing. The Workspaces are the default collaboration tool within the Power BI. They are partly Office 365 and partly Power BI, which makes it a bit of a hassle. Lately, they've been removing or disconnecting the Office 365 bits partly, so it's easier to manage just for the Power BI service team. But still, it's a mix and can be messy when you're dealing with large groups. There has been an improved administration of the Workspaces over the last year, both in terms of the ability to block or set locks on using whether or not users can take copies of the reports. And when we got a separate Power BI admin role that was split out from the Office 365 admin, that helped us a lot because the Office 365 admins really didn't want any of us BI developers doing stupid things in Office 365. So they clung to their power and made it very cumbersome in the start for us to do any real administration of the Power BI site. Still, there is an extra step to manage groups and memberships within the Workspaces. And Workspaces allow users to share the dashboards and reports. And as mentioned, initially all users could make copies and edit the report, and you will start having losing control over the report within the workspace and in the organization. But luckily now we can turn that off. And users need Pro license to access the Workspaces. So if you're dealing with organizations with both Pro and free licenses, you will see that is only when only the Pro license that are able to access the Workspaces. So content packs, they are a deprecated feature. You will still see the name within. Let's see if we can get them. I only get data now. So earlier you had in the bottom left it said the content packs, and you still see it says create new content, but it's now everything is moved. And it used to be the best way to share dashboards and reports without managing the Workspaces. But it had a very problematic ownership control because it was the person who published the content pack that owned it. So when you had users leaving the organization, if they hadn't deleted or transferred ownership to the content pack, it was a rather messy job to get those content packs handed over to somebody else to either delete or to continue managing. Apps, though, they started off as a premium feature, and now they have replaced content packs as the best way to share dashboards and reports within the organization. They are read-only content, and there is no need to administer Workspace per membership. You can choose to either publish an app to the whole organization, or you can do a membership if you want to and publish it only to those people that you're allowing to have access that app. And row level security is still valid within an app. And you need pro license as well, unless you are using premium capacity, which I'll talk a bit about later. So the way we work with Workspaces, we use them as the staging areas and testing grounds. So developers have Workspace for deploying our development or early development of reports. And then we are sharing one workspace per business area, and the super users that are doing testing on our reports have access to that workspace. So when we are done with deploying or done with working on a report, we deploy it first to the BI internal workspace, and then afterwards we deploy it out to the business area workspace, where it will be tested by the business user. Of course, when you are working as an analyst, developing new reports, you're allowed to have your own workspaces, even though you have to ask for one to be created. You're allowed to use a workspace to work with other analysts to discuss and share unofficial reports. And the rest of the users access the reports and dashboards via apps. This is also our best source control system at the moment. We publish the version we are working on into the BI developer workspace, and then the test version is renamed, and then we publish the new and latest version of the report in with the old name into the workspace. So you have for instance, commercial report or commercial dashboard. Then when we develop a new version, the old version will be renamed V1 and the new version will take over. And of course, Power BI Desktop for development. And again, because we want users to play around with data and hopefully find some interesting data by themselves, all users are able to access and install Power BI Desktop via Software Center, and it's updated, if not monthly, at least quite regularly. So, tracking report statistics and usage. We have a PowerShell script that pulls Power BI logs from the service every day. And then we use internally SSIS for ETL and also for aligning SSRS report statistics into a single dashboard. And of course, there are separate reports for Power BI and SSRS, but within the same workspace, and the dashboard itself is merged. Let's see if I remember to have that access. So it's a simple one. This is a test version, so it doesn't show you live data, but there are 307 active users, 40,000 views in total. This is a bit old one. We have doing about 600 daily users in Power BI and quite a bit more in peak periods like month end and so on. So it's quite easy to do the partial extract and simple JSON file, so it's easy to transform as well, and then upload this into reports. So what is a premium tier and why should you use it? Well, it's a regular Power BI as a service is shared hosting, whereas premium Power BI is a dedicated capacity and dedicated hardware. Earlier you had to do embedded Power BI only on premium capacity. Now it's also available in apps. And it's if you read Chris Webb's blog, you will see he has a nice way of testing premium capacity through embedded Power BI. Power BI report server is available as a download on premium capacity, or as I mentioned earlier, also on the SQL Server Enterprise with the service level agreement. Access to apps demand pro license on shared hosting, but where you are on premium, you do not need a pro license to access apps, which means that for our organization, we calculated that with about 500 users, even though some of them do have to have pro license, most of these will still be so-called free. And the extra added cost of using premium tier is mostly covered by us not having to buy pro license to the users. Sorry. And there are a few exceptions to this rule. One of this is if you want to analyze in Excel. So take a Power BI report and in an app and you want to analyze in Excel, that will demand the pro license. But for the majority of people, you do save a pro license for them when you're doing with premium. Let's see now, that was wrong. Though, of course, again, publishing and editing reports in shared workspaces is still a pro license on premium tier as well. So all the business analysts and all the BI developers that are working on Power BI reports and publishing them will need to have the pro license to be able to work. And we calculated again roughly 500 plus users, organization daily usage. You'll start saving money on the premium P1 tier just from a pure cost perspective. And again, it's the benefits of using the apps anyway really outweighs that price increase. And then of course you start doing things like when you have dedicated hardware and dedicated capacity, you will be less dependent on peak times of other users in the same shared hosting. So with that in mind, I think I'm done for now. We had 45 minutes, 2 minutes to go. So are there any questions?
I'm looking around the room.
The reports on the audit log, was it made by themselves or just
Yes. There is a blog post available online to see how you can download the Power BI log files, but we developed the report ourselves afterwards.
Yeah. Before your session, I did a session on automating Power BI, and I covered the audit logs in a couple of different ways. There's a pre-built report that you can buy from Neil Analytics. There's one available in the TechNet gallery as well that you have to install on a server. And I covered the PowerShell script to actually get the logs out of the Office 365 tenant. That's something that people actually seem to like over here. Do you have a solution of that available online somewhere?
I can see if I can find it and share it with you afterwards. But it's not in my slides or in my files, but I can try and get it to you tomorrow so you can send it out to people. There is also a report it was released in September covering or allowing premium capacity admins to see the capacity usage of their Power BI server. But since I don't have access to, I'm not a premium tier admin anymore, I can't show you that report. But pardon?
We saw that in a previous meetup. Brian Lee and Vanessa Yu from NXP Semiconductors, they showcased that. I have a recording of it that I will still be posting online sometime, so people can actually enjoy that, including you.
Yeah, I see it at my colleagues, but I can't show it to you because I don't have it on my desktop. But yes, it was released in a new version in October, so it's supposed to be a lot improved since the first one.
Looking around the room if anybody else has questions.
Yeah, maybe about the user adoption. So you told that for Power BI as a service, self-service, that there is a high user adoption, but it's not really the same feeling I have. It's still difficult to get people using Power BI. They still go into Excel. So I don't know what the others think.
Yeah.
Did you get?
No, we don't. Of course, we do have a lot of users still using Excel, but lots of the people that used Excel before have started using Power BI instead. We've seen a very strong movement away from Excel and into Power BI, though typically people, at least people above 60, tend to get the report in Power BI and then export it to Excel afterwards. But for most analysts, we see that when they realize the power that is in moving away from Excel and started using Power Query and DAX to develop the reports, they see they have a lot stronger set of features there, and then they've just stopped using Excel.
One thing I've noticed is that you actually have to sometimes start running promotion campaigns where you actually promote reports, or even just sit together with the business people and start building something that they can start promoting.
Yeah, that's what we did. We had first we started off with one dedicated business analyst that ran around with Power BI and a laptop and showcased what you could do with Power BI. And then when he convinced some of the ones that we have targeted as super users and evangelists, they have started doing the same thing. So we're spreading it that way.
Yeah. I noticed in your slides that you were also doing something about education. Something else that Brian Lee and Vanessa Yu were doing at NXP Semiconductors was that people wouldn't get a pro license without first having done the edX course and the guided learning on powerbi.com. Is this something that you do as well?
Yes, we do not. We don't. We are restrictive on our pro licenses, so we only give those to people who have a valid business need, and then of course they will need to have the training as well. But we did we did training for everyone, anyways, to make sure that they understood what they could use it for. Because we have people out on the grounds doing runway clearing and so on that have benefits from some of the reports we are doing.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Nobody in the room. I have some online questions.
Well, while you're reading that, I just remembered one thing. We had a security issue with because people are doing dashboards that are for real-time monitoring on shared screens, and this was security features that our security department refused us to have because those screens were unlocked. But now the Azure AD allows users to have fake emails, so you can have very limited shared screen users that are allowed to log on and be dedicated for this support only, which makes it easier. Yeah.
You mean the guest users in AD?
Yes, it's a guest user with a fake email ID, and so they are able to log on and see reports, but they are not allowed to do anything else, which security then said was okay.
It's a good tip. So for huge data sets, do you put them all on SSES cubes, or do you dare to build them directly in Power BI data sets? Leo is asking that.
We've tried to do this only in Power BI, but we have best experience putting him into cubes or in tabular models instead. But yes, we did have some of them, and also some of these analyst reports are starting off as Power BI embedded or imported data, and then we extract the model instead afterwards when we see that it's running better on the SSAs.
Do you also teach the people that they should first limit their data sets while importing them or while developing?
Not really. We let them run amok first and then trying to teach the error of the ways afterwards.
Okay, cool.
It's a way of teaching people the importance of data modeling, really.
Yeah, that's how we all learn. Jesus is asking, how long did it take you to set up or define your architecture framework to formally engage on using Power BI service, the cloud, as a whole in your company?
We started defining, well, two things. We started defining the beginning of the architecture in November and December, and we had everything up and running in February. But then, of course, things have changed along the way, and the architecture has been adopted to make use of the improved features and the improved administration that we have gotten.
Okay, I hope that answers Jesus' question. I look around the room last time. Any questions? No? Cool. Then that's it for us. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the new year somewhere.
Somewhere, sometime. Yes. Thank you, everyone,
Yeah.
and thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.